So I'm Tim Turner, and I'm on YouTube. I'm Tim T in Florida, and that's what a lot of people know me as, Tim T in Florida. So I've been doing this Bigfoot research for just over 3 years now, and I started doing it because I've hunted all my life, and I've been watching some of the TV shows, and they never really showed anything. And I always figured Bigfoot was real from you hearing all the different stories of people seeing them, all the different Native Americans have always had them in their history. So I just decided one day to start using my hunting experience to go out and start looking and try to actually find them. And before doing that, I got on YouTube and did some research around Florida here where I'm at and tried to find if anybody was actually showing anything. So I started learning what to look for. And then I started going out and using my own hunting and tracking skills, and I started finding like my third time going out, I actually started finding footprints. And then I got to where I was finding a lot of footprints in a couple different areas. I got to where I started finding hairs. I was doing a lot of stuff like that, filming a lot, videoing a lot. Then I finally got to where I was starting to realize if I slowed down my videos and took screenshots and I can zoom in on it, I could actually see these beings or these creatures actually watching me while I was out there.
What's the area that you primarily do your research in?
I'm researching mostly in Green Swamp, which is in Central Florida, and then some areas around it. Some areas that go into a couple other counties: Pasco County, Hillsborough County, Polk County, Sumter County. A lot of counties right there around Central Florida. The Green Swamp is a really big, huge area, and it's got several wildlife management areas in it. Some of them that I used to hunt, and there's also a state park in it. And we have a big water aquifer running underneath the Green Swamp, underneath Central Florida. And I think that has a lot to do with it too while they're here, because that creates a lot of energy.
Have you ever had a face-to-face encounter with one or seen one up close or just through the videos?
I haven't seen one up close, but I have seen one run, and it was as big as I am. It was like a gray blur. It ran across through an opening, and it, like I said, it was as at least as large as I am. It was about 5 foot, 6 foot tall, something like that. Just a gray blur where it ran across the trail. And I haven't actually seen one up close myself with my eyes, but when we go out and film, then coming back and looking through my video footage, I'm seeing them because like our eyes only see like 1% of light, where the cameras that work off of our cameras work off of light also, but they pick up a little bit different light than our eyes do. So you can go in and sometimes it don't even take screenshots. Sometimes I'm seeing them really good without any taking any screenshots.
When you go out and do the research, about how often do you get out in the woods to research?
Most of the time we were going every weekend. We've kind of slowed down a little bit now, but we were doing almost every weekend there for a couple of years. Yeah. Pretty much when I go out, I'm looking for swampy areas mostly. Um, I'm looking for animal trails, game trails, where deer and wild hogs travel, because the wild hogs are a main food source for them here where we're at. And a lot of times, if you're following hog sign, where the hogs are rubbing trees, they're rooting around, you can see their tracks. Following that, and also following the trails that deer travel on. A lot of times, I'm finding the footprints along those areas, and along those areas where there's barbed wire fences, I'm finding where the hairs on the barbed wire fences where they're crossing the fences, just like the animals do. Like the wild hogs that go underneath the bottom wire of the fence, and deer will either go in between the bottom and the second wire, or they'll jump over the top. And like that, I find a lot of animal hairs like that on the fences. And then these Bigfoot hairs that I'm finding, some of them are on all the strands of the wire, where they've crossed the fence, and sometimes they're on the top wire where they cross the fence, and you're actually having to pull the hair upwards from where they stepped over, and as they came down, the hair got caught. So the top wire fence, you're actually pulling the hair upwards to get it off.
So you think they just step over the fence?
No, it's not all the time. Sometimes I think they actually go through the fence like we would, like us humans. Like when we come up to a barbed wire fence, we'll push one of the wires down and go through in between the wires. And sometimes the way I'm finding the hairs, I think they do the same thing.
Have you ever had these hairs analyzed?
I haven't sent them off to anybody. Actually, I have. I've sent them off to a couple other researchers, and they have actually told me that they received the hairs, but then they never said anything else about it. So after that, I went and got me a cheap microscope, and I've been looking and examining the hairs myself. And I collect all the different animal hairs from around here, and I've done a couple videos where I've been looking at the animal hairs on the microscope, looking at our hairs on the microscope, and then looking at these hairs that I'm finding that I believe are the Sasquatch skunk ape. And there's actually some of the hairs that even look different than that.
Are you
Yeah.
able to get images of those varied hair sources and what the difference looks like?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah. The ones that are the reddish hairs, especially, I think are the Bigfoots. And then there's some that you'll see they're like a green and clear that I'm not sure if they're a Bigfoot or if they're just some type of cryptid that we're seeing.
What do you hope to accomplish by getting these videos and the hair samples and the footprints? What is your goal with this?
Well, when I first started, it was just so that I would know the truth if these are real and if they're out there. And then that kind of changed to where I was wanting to show people, and I'm wanting to show more and more people that I can, and teach them that these beings are out there. They're not harmful to none of us so far. They're out all the time out there watching us, and they haven't been harmful. And I'm just trying to just now basically just showing people that, look, I got all this evidence that I'm finding in my videos. I'll even try to teach a little bit and show you what I'm finding, and just mainly just to let people know they're out here and they're real, and that you're not what you're seeing on TV is not really what they look like.
And what do they look like then? If they don't look like those creatures that, pretty massive, what are you seeing that these creatures look like?
Yeah, yeah, they don't look like an ape like they show on TV. They look more human. Most of them look more human. Some of them have faces that look more like a dog type, and some of them I think that we're seeing are actually dog man. But most of the ones that we're seeing have more of a human look to them.
So is it the face that looks more human or
Yeah,
the
the
body
face.
shape or size or what?
No, mostly the face. The body shape to me kind of does look kind of apish, kind of. And there's actually one that I caught on thermal camera that looks more like an American native shaman. Like he looks more like that. He doesn't look like an ape at all, other than having a little bit more hairy arms.
What do you think these things are? Do you think they're just flesh and blood animals, or do you think there's another dimensional aspect to them?
Yeah, I don't think they're flesh and blood like we are. I thought that at first, but now I'm seeing way too much. Um, with us not being able to actually see them when they're right there in front of us or real close to us with our eyes, but yet I'm catching them on camera that close. I'm catching them on the thermal camera where they're giving off heat. They're within a few feet of us sometimes, and so I think there's something else there where they're not huge, just flesh and blood like we are. I think they have some type of abilities, or it could even be something that maybe we had in the past and don't have no more because our DNA being changing and the way the humans are progressing. Maybe we don't have those abilities no more. But I think they can go in and out of dimensions and portals. I do believe that, and I am seeing orbs um, on my thermal cameras. I'm catching orbs flying around us, and I'm also catching them on the game cameras. And I think that they are a type of energy, and I think these Bigfoot are using them. I think they use them either to travel or somehow they're using them in another way, but I think they're connected.
Have you seen any of the orbs visually,
No, I haven't, not visually, no, no,
just on the camera?
just on the cameras, yeah. And like I say, on the thermal camera, when we're out there, they can be flying around us and we can't see them with our eyes, but I'm catching them on the thermal camera. And I've also done comparisons too with the thermal camera footage of like birds and other animals out there, and birds that fly around and insects that fly around, and they look totally different than the orbs do.
Any sound from out of these creatures?
Yes, I do. Yes. Um, at first, I got where I was actually feeling them watching us. It's like a pressure on my head when they get close and I can feel them. Um, I hear a lot of stories about Vietnam veterans where they were getting like a sixth sense built up like that when they were out there fighting in the war. And that's what I kind of think this is. It's kind of a sixth sense. It's like a pressure on my head when they're close to us and watching us. And then there's times where I can actually hear them moving around and I can hear them following us. I can hear them. Sometimes it's real subtle, like small tree limbs breaking or cracking, like little tree limbs moving. Sometimes it's real subtle stuff like that that you learn as being a hunter and you're out there a lot. You're listening to the animals. You're listening for the animals to move around. You learn to hear stuff like that. Some of that I think is what I'm hearing while they're moving around that maybe a lot of people wouldn't hear. But since I've got so much experience with the hunting and tracking that I'm hearing them, so I can hear them following us. I can hear them get close to us. I listen to the birds. When they get close, the birds will start sounding off distress calls. I have heard vocals a couple times also as well. That it almost sounds kind of like an apish, like almost like a monkey type sound. Um, and I've caught some of that on audio too, on like on my game camera or not my game camera, but my video footage, like where I wear my GoPro on my chest, and I've caught some of that vocal sounds, the same exact sounds. When I'm going back through my footage and I got my earbuds in, and then I can hear those sounds as well that I couldn't hear when I was there.
Do you hear this and you get visuals every time you go out?
Um, not every time, and there's sometimes where I catch them on the cameras that I don't feel them and I don't hear them. We don't get them every time, but we are getting them quite a lot. And that there's a lot of times too where we were out with other groups. We were a member with the Mid Florida group for a couple of years too, and out with them. And when I'm hearing these beings, when I'm catching them on camera, they seem to be watching me and not the rest of the group. And the rest of the group wouldn't hear or sense anything, and they would just keep walking off. And I would stop and lag behind and be filming these beings, these creatures. So that's kind of too why we kind of broke off and went back on our own, myself and my wife Lynette. So we're back to basically researching on our own, and then we'll go out every once in a while with somebody else, like Kathy at Bigfoot World or Mike Aguilar. He's a good friend of mine too. You interviewed him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah, those were great interviews. All of those were very
Yeah,
good.
and I have a lot of footage of him and his areas too, in my channel, my YouTube channel. And I just
So,
have a real interest in that now too, and I just keep learning more and more. I'm doing a lot of reading. I've been reading a lot of books, uh, books by Scott Carpenter, David Pilates, um, even David Shealy down in Everglades. He's got a book out that's got a lot of information in it. So I've been reading Ron Moorhead. Ron Moorhead's book is just slap full of information. I got bookmarks and yellow highlights all in his book.
what do you think you have learned over these years that you've been doing this?
I think I have learned that these beings were always out there watching me while I was hunting, and I didn't know it. I didn't know they were there. And there's actually a couple times now that I look back and I realized that I had encounters with them and they were around, and I just never thought about it, Bigfoot or nothing like that back then. And like one time I had a growl, me and my hunting buddy, we heard a growl, and it was almost like a tiger. It was really loud, and everything went dead silent for a few seconds after that. And I was standing there trying to figure out what kind of animal here in Florida could growl like that. Because being a hunter, being out there in the woods, I knew all the animals, and I've been all out in all the swamps out there, hog hunting, hunting the wild hogs, and I knew all the animals and stuff, and I couldn't figure out what could make that growl like that loud.
So do you think that you were just unaware before and they were there, or do you think
Yeah.
that once you started getting interested in them, then they started coming around more?
No, I think they were around. I think they were around watching me then too.
You just weren't
Yeah,
aware of them.
yeah, I just wasn't aware of them. Yeah, there was a couple of times where I had killed a wild hog, and then I couldn't find it when I knew I should have. I knew I should have been able to find it. And now thinking back, I realized that they probably took it after I shot it and it fell and went down. That before I could find it in the brush and the palmettos and stuff, that they had already picked it up and took it off.
Well, what else do you have to share, Tim? This is very interesting.
I have quite a lot actually. I have a lot of orbs on the game camera. A lot of those I'm getting at night. A lot of different orbs moving around. And these are areas too where the deer move through a lot. I'm getting a lot of deer on the game cameras. I'm catching the orbs coming through there on the game cameras. And I've actually got one Sasquatch on there that's partly cloaked. You can see him because it was foggy. So you can see him, and he's standing in front of one of my game cameras. I would set up the game camera so I had one taking videos of something that would walk across in front of it and trigger it, like the deer were doing. And then I had another camera facing that one, and it was just taking photos every 2 minutes, just taking a photo every 2 minutes the whole time it was out there. And the one that was taking the photos, it caught that Bigfoot standing in front of the other game camera. He never set off that other game camera by moving in front of
Don't you think that's a little odd?
it. Uh, I, I, I don't myself because I was putting gifts out in front of that game camera that was set to take videos, and there would be every time going back through the video footage of the cameras, you would see the apples there. You would see a deer walking around, paying no attention to them. One video, the apples would be there. The next video, there would be nothing there. They would be gone. So I know there's something there. They're using some kind of energy or something that they don't set the camera off. They could walk out there, take the apples and leave, or either they were running through there so fast, grabbing the apples that it didn't set the camera off. I think that's some of the abilities that they have that we don't have nothing like that being human. Showing I had military experience. That was back in the 1980s. I was in the Army for a couple of years. I've been hunting and fishing all my life outdoors. There's an eight point buck antler. The skull and antlers together is all really nice. That was my first gift that they left me.
So they leave you gifts.
They leave me gifts too. Yes. Yep. And I've got a ibis bird skull that I believe they left for me. Um, then there's a deer skeleton on there too that my wife Lynette, she found it when we were out there. She saw it first, and we went over there and examined it. I examined this deer skeleton really good. There was no marks in it at all, no bullet holes, and it's actually not in a hunting area anyway. But there was no bullet holes. There was no knife marks on it, no teeth marks from animals. The only thing on this skeleton was just the ribs were broken, like something with hands had broken the ribs, like pulling them apart. The legs had been pulled off. The legs had been pulled off and were laying there, no teeth marks in them. I think they were always there watching me when I was hunting. And I got to where I was a really good hunter. I got a few deer, but I got a lot of hogs. And I think that's why because they see me out there, they're watching me do my tracking, and I think that's why they left the deer skulls like they did.
So is there any other area you want to cover?
We've been using a tri-field meter, and this meter, and I've been showing it a lot in my videos and explaining why it was made. The tri-field meter was actually made for people to use in their homes. to see if they're getting hit with radio frequency from their microphones. I mean their microwaves, their cell phone, the cell phone towers, the modems for our Wi-Fi, stuff like that. So if you get close to a cell phone tower, you start getting real high readings where you're getting hit with radio frequency, which is a microwave electrical current. So we're a lot of times we're out here in the swamp in the woods, and you don't even have a cell phone signal, and we're getting hit with really high radio frequency. A lot of times it's when we're looking at tree structures. It could be when we're stopping and looking at footprints, and we're getting hit with really high. It's just like standing right beside your microwave with the meter, getting hit with really high radio frequency. It's just like that sometimes, way out there in the woods in the swamp. So I just wanted to cover that because I explained too in my videos that a lot of people are using these in their homes for their health. Because if you're getting hit with radio frequency a lot, it starts causing friction in your body tissues, and it'll cause cancer and stuff like that. Like people that go out and work on the cell phone towers, they have to be careful about that too, so they don't end up getting cancer.
And what is this meter called?
It's called a tri-field meter, and there's different models of it. We have one that's called the tri-field meter, but there's different models, and it'll also show you electrical current and magnetic electrical current. Like if you get around the power lines, you'll get electrical current readings, and you'll get magnetic electrical current readings off of those. And again, this was made for at your house. So if you have something wrong with your wiring or your wiring from your electrical wiring going into your breaker box, if some of that's wired wrong, you can be getting hit with electrical um, currents or microwave electrical current or magnetic electrical current is what I'm trying to say. Um, in your home, and stuff like that can affect your health as well. So that's why this was made for. But we're using it in the field, and we actually started using it out there too to see if it was actually radio frequency that I was getting hit with and not infrasound. But the infrasound, when I've been hit with it, it's totally different than when we're getting hit with the radio frequency. I've been hit with infrasound a couple of times, and one of those was back in the past when I was hunting, and I never even thought about Bigfoot or anything like that. I didn't know what was happening. When I was feeling, I had been out hunting a lot. I hunted at night, I hunted at day. It didn't matter. I'm not scared of anything out there. And I was getting hit with this infrasound, and it was making me feel like I needed to leave. It was making me like a dread feeling and anxiety, and making me feel like I needed to leave. And I kept wondering, thinking to myself, wondering what is causing this, because this is not right. I'm not scared of anything out here. What's making me feel like I need to leave and get out of here? So while doing this research, about a year and a half ago, I was hit with it again, the same exact thing, and it it made me feel like I was fixing to fight something, and I was thinking about pulling my gun out because I felt like a bear was coming out charging me. And I just kept thinking calmly, I was like, no, I know what this is now. Keep filming. And even Wynette was feeling something, and she was telling me you need to film in that direction. And I just stayed there, stayed calm, and kept filming the whole time I was feeling that. And then as we left, it gave me a migraine headache for a couple hours, and that was infrasound.
Were you measuring those microwaves at the same time then, or did you do that
No,
later?
yeah, I didn't have that. I didn't have that meter at that time. Yeah. So
And
once I got the meter and started using it, I haven't been hit with the infrasound like that since then. But we get readings with the radio frequency a lot.
it would have been interesting to know when you were having that feeling if there were any other frequencies that were measurable in that, but I understand you haven't had that since. So,
Yeah, yeah. I haven't had them do that since then either. Yeah,
well, that is just that's very fascinating. It sounds like you've done a lot of thorough work and analyzed what is happening to you while these things are present,
Yeah.
and the information is there. When you were hit with this infrasound, what kind of images came back from your footage there?
Um, we actually were taking the screenshots and looking at them really close. I can see where some of these beans are. Um, it's really hard to see them though. They blend in so good. It's really hard to see them. A lot of people when they look at stuff like this, they just want to say, "Oh, that's pareidolia." But with me knowing the woods, knowing the animals, when I'm looking at that up in there close, and you get used to it as well. Your eyes start getting used to when you're seeing these beans, and then you start taking screenshots like that and looking up in there close. Your eyes started getting adjusted to it, and where you can actually start seeing them better, and you're realizing what that is there.
Yeah, I can imagine that's probably true.
Yeah.
Well, what else do we have to talk about?
Um, I do as much as I can scientifically, like using that meter. Um, I carry a hair collecting kit, so I collect my hairs forensically. Um, I put the gloves on. I take the hairs off and put them in a paper envelope, and I write the date and time and everything on it, where they were, stuff like that. I video myself doing it, so I have everything documented. I do the same thing with the footprints. When I'm finding footprints, I'll measure them, and I film the whole process measuring them. So I have all the measurements for scientific data, and I measure the length, the width. I'll measure the step from one foot to the other. I'll measure the stride, which is like from the right foot to the right foot, or the left foot to the left foot. And then when I can, I'll measure the gait and the angle of the stride as well. Sometimes that's not as easy to get, but the main thing is I try to document as much as I can scientifically.